call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Bardstown City Council on January the 10th. First item on our agenda is we're going to call on our Chief Todd Spalding. We have recognition of some of our first responders on some swift water rescue. So, Todd?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take this time to recognize Lieutenant Corey Lanham. Corey, if you come up. So on January 3rd, Nelson County had a significant rain event which caused flooding regionally within our area at 0455. We responded to the 1,000 roadblock of Springfield Road and Bloomfield. We were initially told there was going to be 2 occupants trapped in 2 separate vehicles, and as Corey worked his way down, we ended up finding four victims, and he was able to bring them to safety. So tonight I just wanted to recognize Corey for his honor him for his bravery and dedication that morning to protecting the citizens of Bardstown and Nelson County. Anything else?
Yeah, it was a team effort. All of my guys here were there, and had also somebody else on the boat with me, so just get everybody up here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Corey.
I'd like to just say on behalf of course, the city, that was a rescue that was outside the city limits, but our guys are trained and we do mutual aid anytime we are called on an event like this, and so it was great that we have first responders that are capable of making those kind of rescues. People sometimes take things for granted, but if you were one of those people in those cars that were, stopped in the floodwaters, you were probably happy when you saw this group show up that day. And did we make another rescue outside the county or not?
We did one street in Spencer County.
Yeah, we also had to go. So all your training paid off, and you saved some lives that day. So congratulations and thanks for all that great work that y'all did. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.
All right, we got some other good things to talk about in the early part of the agenda. We've got a proclamation that's sponsored by Councilman Williams recognizing the 2022 Bardstown High School football team. So I would like to take a moment and I'll read it, and I'd like Coach and Roland to come up with me. We'll take a picture and present this. But I've got a proclamation. Oh, come on, read it. Coach Williams, our Bardstown High School football team had a tremendous season, and we all wish the last game had gone a little bit better, but you can't get to that last game unless you do a lot of things right to get there. Rick McKay and I know about some of that. We've been on both sides of it. But congratulations. So Roland gave us some information about this year's team as well as some other teams in the past, and we want to recognize that this evening. But since 1912, the Bardstown football team has played 1,009 games, whereas the team has won 681 or 67.5%, lost 307 or 30.4%, and tied 21, which is 2.1% of the games. And whereas the football program has 2 back-to-back undefeated regular seasons, 2005, 2006, 2021, and 22. Whereas the 21 and 22 teams have a combined 26-2 best 2-year win total in the school's history. And whereas the football team was state runner-up in 1969, 1992, 1993, and 2022. And whereas the team won the state championship in 1967, 1970, 1981, and 2001. And whereas the Bardstown alumni and the citizens of Bardstown wish to express their heartfelt congratulations to the 2022 Bardstown football team. Now therefore, I, J. Richard Heaton, Mayor of the City of Bardstown, do hereby encourage all Bardstown residents to join the celebration of the Bardstown High School football team. So Coach Clark, you want to come forward and Roll them to take a picture and present this to you. Congratulations. Congratulations, thank you. You go first.
Can I make a comment, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
On that 1970 football team, I know you didn't notice to go on tonight. Rick McKay's in here tonight. Rick was the quarterback on that team, weren't you, when you won the state championship, 1970?
We got to it. No, except Sweetie and Jerry and them won the year after Danny Gilkey and Woody, and I got beat up there by Mount Sterling the following year.
He was 69.
Dick was a junior on that team that beat Lynch, right? Dick was the Lynch that they beat. Yeah, but don't bring it up, Joe. It was the last day.
Sorry.
It was my fault.
I was trying to be good to you. I should have just said yes.
All right. Let me see. Okay. Our city engineer, the next item on the agenda is a service request for Brothers Lane. We're going to table that this evening. This was a request actually from the fiscal court. The fiscal court was going to pay for this extension for water on Brothers Lane. Jessica Phillips said we haven't gotten all the information on how many people would be served by this line. We don't know if you understand the hydraulics of this. We always have a lot of flushing of lines, and when you have a line that's extended with very few customers, that water will get stagnant, requires to be flushed. So we want to make sure how many customers we're going to serve, and you don't want to get in a situation where you're flushing more water annually than you are selling. So we need to get some more information on how many houses will be served by that. But they're using some of the funds that are for infrastructure for underserved areas to pay for that. But when Jessica gets more information, she'll bring it back to us. Okay, next is the Historical Review Board, and I'll call on our city attorney to read the summary of the COAs. I don't think we have any recusals this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. COA 22-113, Stave 33 Properties LLC applicant owner requests approval for demolition of part of a structure at 105 West Muir Avenue. Recommendation approval of demolition of the rear back wall of the structure. COA 22-114, Stave 33 Properties LLC applicant owner requests approval for new construction to occur at 105 West Muir Avenue. Recommendation approval of the new construction is discussed during the meeting. COA 22-115, William and Teresa Reed applicant's owners request to demolish walls and part of a roof at 114 West Broadway Avenue. Recommendation approval to demolish the proposed walls and section of the roof as discussed during the meeting. COA 22-116, William and Teresa Reed applicant's owner request to add an addition at 114 West Broadway Avenue. Recommendation approval for the proposed addition as presented in the application under option 2 and as discussed during the meeting. COA 22-117, Smile Doctors applicants, 208 North 2nd Street LLC owners request to add signage at 208 North 2nd Street. Recommendation approval to install the sign as proposed in the application. COA 22-100 amended, Kim Conway applicant owner request to amend the design of the addition at 112 West Broadway Avenue. Recommendation approval of the new changes as discussed during the meeting. COA 22-120, Kim Conway applicant owner request to install landscaping at 112 West Broadway Avenue. Recommendation approval to install the proposed landscaping with the following conditions. Conditions: the emerald green trees will be planted 6 feet from the rear alley.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Audrey. You don't have anyone needs to recuse on the vote this evening, so I need a motion then to approve the COAs as recommended by the Historic Review Board with conditions.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Hart. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Is there any more discussion?
Mayor, I think we should talk about the 13 and 14 just a minute.
Okay.
I think everybody deserves to know.
Yeah, and just for the people out in the audience, the council gets full minutes of the meetings as long, and the applications and the entire process to review before the vote, so, but Joe, go ahead.
I don't know if anybody's had a chance to follow that, but that's the property that we had supported, what was his name again?
Luke Porteous.
Luke Porteous, yeah, Roman Hardin, on there, raising the roof pitch on that house on John Fitch.
Westmere, yeah.
Anyway, so when they got into construction of it, they ended up having the back wall of this place was completely rotted, and I think through communication failure there, they ended up removing that whole back wall because they thought it just needed to be repaired. I mean, it wasn't any way it could be stable and hold up this new roof or anything of that nature. So, for lack of a better way of putting this, it had gotten to the point so much of the house had disappeared because of that, they asked for a demolition permit. And now I guess it's going back, Audrey, as a...
Well, and so I think to be clear, because I think it's a little bit confusing the way the ordinance requires it, when there is a demolition under the ordinance, we are required to consider it new construction for what's going back. So if you looked, I don't know, you attended some of the meeting, I think. I don't know if it's so clearly reflected in the minutes, but it was very clear from their conversation that, number one, I don't know if anyone else looked at the application, but there are pictures where you can see truly it's very deteriorated. I mean, I'm not a contractor, but it looked very deteriorated. They explained that the roof is the wall is flat, so there's sort of no overhang, so any water running down the back of the house was just kind of running down the wall. And they couldn't have necessarily known how deteriorated the wall was until they took it down. That being said, they certainly understood now. I think that the proper process would have been to bring this application for demolition of the back wall first, but I don't think the outcome would have been different because it seems to me that, based on the criteria, it would have been appropriate to approve that. But that being said, we call it new construction because you're demolishing an old structure, so you have to call it new construction, but truly, what they approved for new construction is the exact same plans that were already approved. So the same footprint is going back, the same siding, the same windows, all of the things that came before the Historic Review Board, I can't remember, several months back, and that the council reviewed. Nothing about the scope of the project has changed. It's just a little confusing that we do call it new construction because at this point we've demolished so much of, when they're demolishing any portion of a structure, they consider it to be new construction. But there's not any change in the original plans, aside from the fact that this wall was taken down, but will be put back up with the same windows and doors and all that on the rear that were presented. Does that make sense, Councilman?
It does, and if I can make reference to another project that happened last year, it was very similar to this, but they did come back and apply for a demolition permit because those walls were not structurally sound, but they did go through the proper channels where these, I think it was an accident that wall was removed. I truly believe that. And there's not, what do you do when it's gone?
Well, but I don't think, I don't want to speak for the Historic Review Board, certainly it's an independent body, but I don't think the outcome would have been any different if they had come in and requested it before it was taken down, simply because of the level of deterioration. And, Mr. Porteous explained that he didn't feel that the structure could be safely braced up with that existing wall, for workers to even be on site. So, the process wasn't necessarily done in the right order, but I think the outcome is appropriate.
It wasn't visual until you got into the actual construction and taken the drywall off and the outside siding that was, we don't regulate the inside.
Right.
And once you took the drywall off, you can see all the water damage and the rotting that made it impossible for that back wall to hold any kind of the renovations that they were
especially the weight of that new roof or
the renovations that they were approved for. But it was sort of an after fact thing because you didn't know that until you got into the actual construction part of it. So once that was family, we stopped them and said, you've got to come back and go through the channels again. So that's.
And to their credit, they did. The moment they received a stop work notice, they stopped and they went through the process. And even now, I don't think they've resumed work waiting for the, COA to formally be issued. So.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on that, Joe?
I just appreciate it. Thank you, Audrey.
All right. Anybody have any other questions on any of these? All right. We have a motion and a second. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, we've got, anyone having a chance to review the minutes from the December 13th meeting? If there's no additions or correction, we can approve those by unanimous consent. Next item on the agenda, we'll call on our CFO, Aaron Bowles, to go over our financials.
All right, thank you, Mayor. While you guys are pulling up the handout, just this report covers October through December activity in our finances, second quarter of our fiscal year. So on the first page there, you can see general fund revenue came in strong during the second quarter due to recognizing our 2022 property tax revenue. $5.2 million was recognized, driving our year-to-date revenue total to $7.6 million, or 55.5% of the budget. And as you can see in the chart, property tax is the largest piece of that pie there, coming in at $2.7 million. As a total, property tax is sitting at 108% of budget, or a $211,000 surplus. Next largest item would be OLF fees, coming in just under $1.7 million. And year to date, those fees sit at 49% of the budget. Other tax revenue there, the majority of that is restaurant tax, which is in turn expensed directly out to the tourism department. That came in at $232,000. We received $57,000 in motor vehicle taxes, $24,000 in a gas franchise fee revenue, and then $23,000 in a cable franchise revenue. Another item on this that's a little bit different is we received $31,000 on a grant for the police department. This was part of a LEAP grant that Joe was working on all throughout FY22, and that money finally came in during this fiscal year. That covered some body armor, weapons, and tasers that they purchased. Moving on to expenditures, they continue their conservative trend, coming in just under $3.3 million for the quarter. Year to date, our expenditures were right around $6.1 million, or only 45% of the budget. And looking at some detail in the chart below, you can see salaries and payroll tax took up $1.2 million, with street paving coming in second at just under $600,000 spent during the quarter. Some areas we worked on were Beach Fork Estates, Cottage Grove, Limestone, Tullamore, Westview, South 3rd, and West Flagey. Going along that the chart there, you can see the fire truck payment at $107,000. That's an annual payment, and we are in year 2 of 7 on that payment, and that's for that new foam bumper truck. Under city parks equipment at $17,000, Daniel bought some benches and some sand digger toys, and then some swing set repair materials for some of the parks. The grants and contributions line at $13,000. We spent $8,000 to the community clinic. That was approved by council. $1,000 to light up Bardstown. That came out of the mayor's contingency fund. And then $4,000 was to the planning commission as they continue their long-term planning study they got going on. No questions? We'll move on to combined utilities.
Aaron, back up to the general fund.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory, what is the bank franchise tax?
That is a tax on deposits held at all local financial institutions. It's 0.025% of the total deposits they have.
Thank you.
Revenue in the combined utilities was $12.3 million for the quarter. pushing our year-to-date revenue to $25.1 million, or 44.6% of the budget. Looking at the charts, you can see service charges account for 93% of the total revenue we received during the quarter. KIA loan reimbursements were a distant second at $250,000, and again, that's loan reimbursements for our pump station projects, Corman's Crossing and Miller Springs that are happening. One odd item there, the grant revenue at $108,000. This was a reimbursement from Nelson County Fiscal Court to help reimburse us for broadband expansion into county areas that they wanted us to go into. Expenditures for $14.2 million for the quarter, with our year-to-date reaching $25 million, or 44.1% of their budget overall. Looking at the detail for each department, you can see there that the electric department sits at 48.1% of their budget, and 81% of their spend during the quarter was on electric purchase for resale. Other items of note: electric construction at $185,000. This was underground work in Hirschland and the Bourbon Downs area of town. And then all the way at the end, construction and tech equipment. They spent $9,500 on a wire reel trailer and about $9,600 on AutoCAD software program. Next up is our water, sewer, and garbage departments. And when you look at those, they're sitting about 32.8%, which seems low. Again, majority of their expenditures are large dollar capital items that haven't quite taken off yet. The big item on the chart there is the Jerry Riley lagoon work that we had to do. It's kind of put our sewer department in a little bit of a bind there. We budgeted in FY23 $670,000 to replace the liner work. We were hoping that during the budget process for FY23, we were still thinking that the sludge removal portion of that project was going to take place during FY22. It didn't happen due to some permitting problems we had in getting the land application permit approved by the state. So unfortunately, we have $716,000 of unbudgeted sludge removal that's hitting our FY23 budget.
That's part of the lagoon work in the first line, right?
Yeah.
That's part of that 1.2.
Yes.
Yeah, we were going through this permitting process this time last year
Right.
to do it in the fiscal year 22.
And when we were budgeting in March, we were
Right.
still thinking.
That, we didn't get the permit until October of this year, so it carried over into this fiscal year, so that we didn't spend that money in the previous budget, but we had to spend it in this budget, but
Right. So there was some rollover from,
we expected
like
to
reserve
have
rollover from
the,
FY22 to help
have
cover
the permit before. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Franklin tomorrow, meeting with the cabinet for this very situation that we've got. We're having problems, Lebanon's having problems, Shepherdsville's having problems, Lawrenceburg's having problems. Everybody in the state's having problems getting these permits on a timely basis to get the sludge being able to be used in a farm application. If you can't use it in a farm application, then you must pay to haul it to a landfill. And the landfill can't take all the sludge that is being produced at these sewer plants around the state. So last year, that was another problem we had, that some of that sludge from the other lagoon last year, we had to take it to Hardin County and to Jefferson County because the state's holding us up on these permits. Senator Higdon's working with us. We're having a meeting tomorrow. They say they're going to fix this problem. I'll see if that is true or not tomorrow. We can't wait 8 and 9 months from the time we need to start these projects to get a permit to put the same stuff on the farm land that farmers get to do with slop without any permit. Farmers can haul all the distillery slop that they can take. And when they don't feed all of it to their livestock, they can put it out on their property with no permits whatsoever. We in turn treat all the waste, which includes distillery waste, put it in the lagoon, it's treated, yet we have to get this permit from the state in order to let the same farmers take the treated sludge that comes from all the waste and put it on their fields. And the sludge is better in fertilizer and nutrient qualities by far more so than the slop that has not been treated. And the farmers will take every bit of it. So there's a contingency of mayors and city engineers going to Frankfurt tomorrow for this meeting. So hopefully we'll get something worked out. So we shall see. I've been on the phone with Senator Higdon yesterday and Friday, and Kentucky League of Cities and Lebanon's representatives and so forth. So we'll see. And it's more of a problem in areas that have a lot of distilleries, because the distilleries produce a lot more waste than your typical cities have. So that's why this central Kentucky area has got issues with it. And it's just grown over time. But it's really expensive. As you can see, that's one lagoon cost us $1.2 million to get the sludge out of it and get it taken off site and repair the liner.
How often does that have to be done? Is it annually or?
No,
This is gonna last, I think Jessica said 20 years or something,
Oh,
I think.
okay.
but we have six lagoons, and we've been doing one a year here of late. At the Jerry Riley plant, there's like 4 lagoons, I think, or 6 down there.
There's two lagoons in Jerry Riley.
2?
Yeah, I don't know how many's in Town Creek, but they're not.
They're massive.
Yeah. But there's 2 at Jerry Riley are gigantic. And they haven't been repaired or the liners replaced since it was built.
That was during Bill Brown's term. But the farmers would line up to take the sludge if we could get this permit process done faster. And we would make this expense a lot less.
Is that an annual permit required?
No, just when you do these.
Oh, it's over how often?
You have to take all the sludge out in order to repair the liners, but you have to do some sludge removal probably. Liners last 20 years, lagoons fill up before 20 years. So this lagoon work has to happen more often than that.
So this permitting has gotten really slow as was years ago. It's easier to do, or do we know?
We haven't had to do a whole lot of it.
Well,
Jerry Riley came.
There's 2 things going on. The lagoons are filling up faster as our growth here has created a lot more waste over time. You know, we built Jerry Riley back with Bill Brown. It still has plenty of capacity, but it's just because of growth, they're filling up faster. We have to remove it in order to get the lagoon's capacity. You don't have to replace the liners whenever 20 years, but you do have to clean the lagoons out.
That's one of the things that's all at the back end. That's after the problem has been created, as far as filling up the lagoons with extra sludge, at the front end, should we be looking at, possibly our BOD limits or something like that on the front end to try to prevent some of the, the extra sludge buildup.
Right.
That's,
So, anyway, we've got a good person in Senator Higdon kind of leading this on it, and so Kentucky League of Cities involved. We've got several cities and city mayors and city engineers going to be meeting with them tomorrow to meet with the head of that division of water.
So, all that to say, I'll probably talk about this again when we'll have to do a budget amendment for the police sewer to clean up some of their line items later on in the year. If you continue to look at that chart, some sewer construction projects, $312,000 of that. Wood Lawn Interceptor project was about $150,000. Our continued pump station work at $108,000, and then we had a final payment on our downtown phase 2 of right at $54,000. Sewer equipment at 124, that was for some aerator work. So when we do all the lagoon works on, you gotta pull all the aerators out and have those refurbished or completely rebuilt. So that was for aerator work at the different lagoons. And then the last item there, water equipment at $23,000. They're continuing to phase out an old communications equipment that allows the water treatment plant to talk to the towers and different control valves throughout their system. So that was just some work continuing there. If there's no questions, we'll move on to cable and internet. They are running well ahead of where I'd like to see them at this time of year. You know, typically being halfway through the year, you'd want to see about 50% expenditures. They're running at 61.5% of their budget with a total spend of almost $5 million during the second quarter of the fiscal year. And that's compared to about $3 million during the first quarter. One of their big things is the cable construction and this broadband expansion out into the county. I believe their contractor worked a lot faster than they realized and was getting so far ahead, and by the time the billing came in, they were kind of over their budget with construction work. So on that line there at $1.2 million, just to give you an example, our total spend last year in FY22 was $1.6 million. So
We put the brakes on
Yes.
that. We met with Nahum and his people and said, you've got to face this in over the full 12-month period. You've only got $400,000 more left in your budget, so they know that now.
So some of the work they did there was out in Benelli Drive, Joe Boulevard, Loretta Road, all the way out to Mount Zion, Bloomfield Road, Chaplain area, Miller Springs, again doing broadband fiber extension work. Like the mayor said, I've asked him to stop any new areas from starting up, but anything that they've started, of course, they need to complete just because they've already opened the ground up. So we need to go ahead and finish those areas out until we figure out what we're going to do.
In some of this, we have ARPA funds funding
Right.
part of this, so it's not all out-of-pocket expenses. So some of the ARPA funds that were specified for infrastructure, internet was part of it, water and sewer. So we've divided those funds up between those departments. So some of these capital projects, water, sewer, and internet are being funded by the ARPA funds.
Right. So again, we'll look at doing a budget amendment. I'll probably try to have that a mid-year amendment within the next couple of meetings, just to get their budget updated to what it's going to actually reflect for this year. Moving on down the line, just some normal purchases throughout. Support and service contracts, that's at $85,000. We have to pay maintenance contracts for a lot of the equipment that we use for internet and cable transmission. Nothing else really throughout their budget other than that construction line item that got kind of out of whack. So although, you know, the combined utilities, we've seen some challenges during the second quarter, there are some positives to note. Our service charge revenue overall is running at just under 55% of budget. So the revenue we're seeing is coming in a lot better than what we anticipated. Our salaries, retirement, health insurance, they're all running at or below budget. And some of the major capital expenditures throughout water and sewer are kind of being pushed back due to some engineering delays or permitting delays or design delays and supply chain problems. So those projects moving back will free up money throughout the combined utilities by the end of the fiscal year. Any questions?
Is it? Aaron?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Let's see, we have any, I don't think we have any committee reports, anything from the staff?
We haven't rescheduled that yet, have we? Gary?
No.
We do have pictures set up for the new council on the next meeting, the 24th, so we'll try to be here at 5:30. Betty, I know you really enjoy that.
Yeah, I love having my picture taken.
We do always take a new picture of all the new council members and the mayor, so the start of the new term, so we'll take pictures before the next meeting. And then we have a mobile food vendor application, so I'm going to let Gary Little talk us through that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This was submitted by Backroads Cooking LLC, and they have all of their permits needed and everything's filled out appropriately. The only thing that he does not have ready, and you could approve in a motion with a condition on this, the rendering in the first picture is just a Photoshop of his actual trailer. He doesn't have it wrapped yet, so what his intention was, it was to start outside the city limits and set up a couple places in the county, and he would just use his normal silver trailer. They didn't have a regulation for that or anything. And then he would come back and wrap it here in the next couple of months. Being winter time, he didn't know how much business he'd be doing either, so if you know, everything's in order except for that, if you wanted to make a motion to approve it with, say, a 60-day to comply on the wrap, we could do that.
Yeah, he would need to come and bring it by us for us to confirm that he has got it wrapped where it looks like what he submitted to us before he would be given his license to operate within the city. So we can approve tonight with that condition, and once Gary has the proof of that trailer resembling what he's submitted to us, then we can give him the license to start operating in the city. Then, of course, he has to get permits for each location and certain days that he'll be operating. That comes also with once he starts operating in the city limits. So Gary's recommended that we have a motion to approve with the condition that his wrapping on the trailer will, in fact, resemble what he has submitted for our consideration.
I'll make that motion, Mayor. With those
Motion
conditions.
by Councilman Jones, is there a second?
Second,
by
Mayor.
Councilman Williams. Any,
We just might want to clarify that if he doesn't comply within whatever amount of time, that he would have to resubmit or something. I think you think that's
we won't
appropriate.
issue the license until he's.
Okay.
Right, we
Got
just
it.
code enforce it.
All right, we have a motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. All right, we have two grave sites, or excuse me, one grave site for James Roman Phillips and two grave sites for John Ewell. We will approve them by unanimous consent. Okay. Does any member of the council have anything to bring before the council this evening?
Well, I'd like to make an announcement that our annual Martin Luther King celebration will be back in person again this year, January the 16th, 12 noon at St. Monica's. And inviting all the council people, mayors, and anyone else interested to, more than welcome to come. It's just be a pretty good
It's
show.
back.
Really big shoe, they say.
All right, thank you, Bill. As far as my update, I would say that I've had some meetings with our new county judge. I've had some meetings with him before he took office with Judge Rapier, and then since then we've had some meetings, and these meetings have been good meetings. I'm trying to update him on a lot of these major capital projects. You know, we know about them and stuff, but the county doesn't always see that a lot of our capital projects are actually outside the city limits, out into the county, water and sewer and cable and internet, and things like the fire department doing mutual aid outside the city limits when needed and so forth. So these have been some good meetings. They've got some growing pains. They're going to be looking for space for some of their agencies, and we got some growing pains too, so we might collaborate on some of that, which would be good. So he and I were just in a meeting at 4 o'clock today with one of our major employers here in town, so I think it's good that we've got good communications going with each other. And Tim had done a lot of work before he, took office. He done a lot of thinking about the needs and things that they want to get accomplished. So I was happy to see that. And then I also spent time with each of you all individually. You all went through a campaign, which I did not have to go through a campaign. So I wanted to hear from you all what you all had heard from people that you spoke to about goals and needs of the city. So I'm happy that you all shared those with me. I'm compiling all that information now with the help of Lisa back there, and we're probably going to prioritize, the most important ones and start working on them. Because we wanted to talk about, we all know we've got, $30 million worth of water and sewer and cable and internet projects in front of us, and but we want to get into, there's lots of needs. Affordable housing is on the list. Homelessness is on the list. More room for some of our agencies. Recreation. We've lost a lot of things. That the bowling alley, the video, skating rink. Recreation. That we've been working on that project for a while, and Judge Hutchins is attending those meetings with us now, and he and I are going to be attending a meeting in Louisville in the coming weeks to talk to some funding people and some private public funding experts and bond experts. So, and we're working with our architect, on phasing of the project so we can afford it. So I'm happy that Tim is sitting in on those discussions, and we've got some pretty smart people that we're working with on that. So a lot going on, but your all's input was really, really good. Traffic problems, we all hear it, but we're going to be working on a lot of those problems in the next 2 years and hopefully the next 4 years. So that was good. I'm trying to listen more than just reacting. You all were out there knocking on doors, meeting with people. I was working, most every day, but I wanted to hear what you all had heard, so that was a good time that we spent together. So thanks. If there's nothing else, then I'll ask for a motion then for adjournment.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot, NELCare, our one-stop resource center for January is a week from Friday at the library, 1 to 3. And then we had Senator Higdon and Representative Massaroni attended an hour-and-a-half meeting with us yesterday with all of our partners in NELCare. We had a really, really good meeting. They really listened to everything that the people that are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis are facing, the problems that they're incurring and things like that. So it was really a good meeting, and I appreciated their input and their listening.
Right. Good. All right, if there's nothing else, then I ask for a motion for adjournment. Motion by Councilman Buckman, is there a second? Councilman Shekels, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.